Hello, welcome to our first lecture on the appendicular skeleton. The muscles of the appendicular skeleton act on the appendicular skeleton. That is, they're going to act on the clavicle, the scapula, the humerus, the ulna and the radius, the hips, the femur, the fibula, the tibia, hands, and feet. Now, some of these muscles actually originate on the thoracic cage. Like the pectoralis minor, is going to originate on these three ribs, and they're going to actually act on the scapula. But because the scapula is appendicular, they're considered appendicular muscles. We are going to start with the thoracic scapular humeral muscles. That basically means the muscles that originate on the thoracic cage, or the scapula, or the humerus that affect the shoulder area. So, pencils down for a second. These muscles are going to be found on the thoracic cage, but they're going to either move the scapula or the proximal humerus. So, you guys are going to be able to identify the actions of muscles on the lecture exam. I'm going to ask you, what does this muscle do? I might ask you also for the rotator cuff where or what side of the scapula these muscles are found on. For our actions and our insertions, these are going to be online activities. And we're going to identify where the muscles are on the lab exam. So, our first muscle is the pectoralis minor. So, pectoralis minor. Hello. There you go. Now, this is the pectoralis minor right here. And notice it is under this bigger green muscle that's been cut, called the pectoralis major. So let's look at it over here on Bob. Now, last lecture we talked about the intercostals. There's the internal intercostal here. That is between the ribs. And that's the deeper of the two intercostal muscles. And then we have the external intercostal on top. So we'd have the external intercostal sitting on top. And yes, I just made green, didn't I? So those are the intercostal muscles. They're between the ribs. We also looked at the scalenes. The scalenes attach to ribs 1 and 2, like so. So we have muscles that attach on top of ribs, then we have intercostals between the ribs. Well, the pectoralis minor is going to be attached to the anterior surface of ribs 3, 4, and 5. And they're going up to the coracoid process. So that sort of looks like it. Let's see if I can do a little bit better job on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to learn in the respiration chapter, they are going to be an evil muscle that has an action on its origin. But for now, we're going to focus on the action on the coracoid process. So the insertion, again, is the coracoid process. And it's going to stabilize the pectoral girdle while you're throwing, moving your arms, swimming a 10K, something like that. It also depresses or lowers the scapula, so it makes the scapula go downwards. So it's making the scapula go downwards. So that's the action we're going to learn. When we get to the respiratory chapter, we're going to find it's evil and acts on its origin. So here's the pectoralis minor. As you can see, it is drawing the scapula and basically down in a downward plane. So that is what it is going to do, forward and down. So people that can shimmy their shoulders, that's what they're using. I can't shimmy my shoulders. And I have to say where I got this web page, where I got the animation from. Most of these animations are from this web page in case I forget to say that. So that muscle was the pectoralis minor. It is on ribs 3, 4, and 5. Because it's called the minor, you know that there must be a major. And this is the pectoralis muscle you guys are used to. So the pectoralis major is a fan-shaped muscle, and it's going to have its origin right here on the costal cartilage. Now remember my favorite sulcus right here, the intertrabecular sulcus. That's where its insertion is. So what is this muscle going to do? How is this muscle going to act? So the name of this muscle is the pectoralis major. Its insertion is the intertrabecular sulcus of the humerus. And it's going to do two actions. It is going to adduct, and it's going to rotate the upper arm medially. So we have Larry and Curly here to show the actions. So Larry here, it's Larry, is adducting. He is moving his arm from away from the body downwards. So it is moving downwards. Medially rotation, I actually wish I had my front camera on now. Here's our stick figure. There's our head. He has his arm like this, and he is bringing it towards the midline. He's making this angle, that's 180, towards the midline. So Curly here, see how he's bringing it towards the middle. So it's sort of like your arms are up at shoulder height and you are clapping towards the center. So adduction, you're bringing it towards your midline. Medially rotation, his arm is out like this and he's bringing it inward. So this angle right here is the angle that's getting less. So one big muscle that I missed was the latissimus dorsi. It is the broadest muscle in your body. So it's going to start right here on this vertebral column, and it's going to go, and it actually sneaks up. So look at the rotating model and see how it sneaks in on the medially side. So see how it's like sneaking underneath the arm and attaching? Guess where it's attaching? 2 points for Gryffindor if you said the intertrabecular sulcus. So it attaches to the intertrabecular sulcus. So what is this muscle doing? So see, it's coming around intertrabecular sulcus. It is going to adduct as well. So it's actually working with the pectoralis, and it's adducting. Now, remember the pectoralis major's other thing was it brought the arm from this position at a 90-degree angle towards the midline. That is medially flexion right there. If I go from this point to this point. Well, latissimus dorsi does the opposite. It starts here. It brings the arm back out to this original position. So that is lateral rotation or lateral extension. I like extension better than rotation. They're both correct. So it's basically the antagonist of the pectoralis major. Now, this muscle should probably be thrown in with the arm muscles, but it's actually acting like the latissimus dorsi and the pectoralis major. It is starting at our very busy coracoid process, and it's going to insert on the medial humerus. So what's that going to be able to do? Well, if your arm is like this, it's going to bring it inward. So it's an adductor. So it's the third adductor there. So this muscle is known as the coracobrachialis, and it is going from our coracoid process to the medial humerus, and it's an adductor. Okay, now for the shoulder pad muscle. This is the deltoid. It actually has 3 parts, an anterior, a medial, and a lateral. And where does it insert? The deltoid tuberosity. So we have the deltoid tuberosity right there. And the only thing it can do, remember this is on the lateral side of the arm, that is to pull it away. So we have 3 adductors. We have the coracobrachialis going from the coracoid process to the medial humerus. We had the pectoralis major going to the intertrabecular sulcus, and we had the latissimus dorsi. It gets countered by the deltoid. And all 3 portions are going to abduct, so they're abductors. Now the anterior portion can medially rotate the humerus. My wife and I used to go to this trainer. He would have us do these punching bag activities with light weights. That was medially rotating our humerus. And they can also do lateral rotation of the humerus as well. That's the lateral third. So sometimes at the gym you see people working their anterior or posterior deltoids as well. Last but not least is our serratus anterior. It gets its name because it looks like a saw. Its origin is the lateral surface of the ribs, and its insertion is the medial border of the scapula. And it's going to stabilize the pectoral girdle, and it's going to superiorly rotate the scapular. Say what? So let's look at what this muscle actually does. It gets its name because it looks like a saw. Serrated knives look like saws. Serratus is saw. And it is going to actually go on the anterior surface of the scapula, and it inserts on the medial border over here. That is where it is attaching. So see in the rotating model, it's going all the way under the scapula to attach to that medial border. So what it does is it's stabilizing it, and because it's over here, when it contracts, it pulls this down, and as a result, that goes up. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So as it's pulling this, it's making this go upwards. And climbers use this. I used to go to a climbing gym all the time. And at that gym, they had such awesome serratus anteriors because of all the reaching moves that they have to do in climbing. I know nothing about climbing, by the way. What muscles did we just talk about? The first was the serratus anterior, which starts on the ribs, and it's going to go and attach to the medial border of the anterior scapula. So that is our serratus anterior. We then had the pectoralis minor. That is on the anterior surface of ribs 3, 4, and 5, and it's attached to the coracoid process. And both of these stabilize the scapula. The pectoralis minor makes it go down, the serratus anterior makes it go up. Then I have the latissimus dorsi, which has insertion in the intertrabecular sulcus, and it actually extends down towards your back because it originates on the spinous processes of the thoracic vertebrae, the lumbar vertebrae. Now this is an adductor, it adducts, and it laterally rotates. It's basically taking your arm, making it go that direction. We then have the coracobrachialis. That's origin is on the coracoid process. Its insertion is the medial humerus right here. Ta-da! The leg on my surface is horrible right now. Then our last muscle was the pectoralis major. It too has an insertion on the intertrabecular sulcus, but this one has its attachment on the anterior. Ta-da! There it is. So again, this is an adductor, and it is going to medially rotate. So it'll make the humerus go towards the middle if your arm is up, like there. Then our last muscle was the deltoid. The deltoid is attached to the deltoid tuberosity right there, and its origin is the scapula and clavicle. So, and I grew up in the 80s, lots of shoulder pads in the 80s, so this always reminds me of the 80s with shoulder pads. So we have the deltoid right there, and this muscle is an abductor. So it abducts the arm. There's my arrow. So those are the muscles that are going to act on the shoulder right there. Now I skipped the ones that act the rotator cuff and the ones that act on the scapula. That is a different lecture. Thank you. Have a good day.